Now, before you even consider investing in Dubai's real estate market, there are certain things that you need to keep in mind as an investor or a homeowner or either. And these are very crucial things that without knowing, you should not even start your search, to be honest. Now, I'm going to briefly run through them all. The first one being primary versus secondary market. Now, the primary market is essentially when the seller of a property is a developer. And the secondary market is when the seller of the property is an individual or an owner or a company for that matter. Now, in terms of an analogy, think of it as purchasing a car from a dealership and purchasing a car from an individual, right? Second-hand, third-hand, whatever. The only difference is that a car is a depreciating asset, whereas a property or real estate is an appreciating asset with time. Now, the second point being ready versus off-plan properties. Ready properties are already constructed, they've received their completion certificates, and they've already mostly been handed over. Whereas off-plan properties are still under construction, and they've yet to receive their completion certificate, or yet to be even handed over for that matter. Now, what's particularly interesting is that this is a separate point because ready properties can be either sold from the primary market or the secondary market. It could be developer stock, or it could be something that an individual is reselling. Whereas off-plan properties can also be primary and secondary, either primary from a developer or secondary from an investor who's already purchased it and is reselling it before it is even completed or handed over, which is essentially called flipping when you resell a property before it is completed. And that's mostly how the investors play the game of real estate here in Dubai. Now, which brings me to point number 3, government and agency fees. When you look at the price of a property, these are the costs that you need to add so that you don't get caught off guard. If it's the primary market from a developer, then you need to add 4% in the form of DLD fees, which are the government fees that you need to pay every time you purchase a property, irrespective of whether you buy it from a developer or go through an agent. Now, there may also be a 3,000 to 5,000 dirham admin fee in addition to that. But moving on to the secondary market, not only do you have to pay the 4% DLD fee, but you also have to pay an extra 2% in the form of agency fees or commission. So just as a general rule of thumb, if you're buying a property from the primary market, add an extra 4%. And if you're buying a property from the secondary market, add an extra 6%. Point number 4, property documentation. Now, when you buy a property from a developer, the first document that you probably receive is the booking form or the reservation agreement, for which you sign. It has your payment plan and whatnot. Thereafter, you get the sale purchase agreement or the SPA. And once you sign your SPA, you get something issued by the government known as an okud, which is your pre-title deed. Now, what is interesting about this is that it is not an actual title deed, but a pre-title deed because the property is not handed over yet. So once it is completed, you get your actual title deed that replaces your pre-title deed. And whenever you buy a property that is already ready, you just get the title deed directly without having to receive these previous documents that I mentioned. Point number 5, property payments. Whenever you buy a property that is under construction with a payment plan, you pay your installments to the escrow account of that particular project. The DLD fees can be paid into the corporate account of the developer, whereas if you buy a ready property from an individual or an owner, you pay directly into his account because he is the owner and not the developer. Point number 6, property resale. When your property is completed, you can resell it in a straightforward manner, of course, at the full value of the property, whereas if it is under construction with a payment plan, developers usually allow you to resell your property anywhere between 30 to 50% of the payment plan threshold. Thereafter, they will issue the NOC to allow you to resell your property. Point number 7, property mortgage criteria. Now, when a property is ready, the entire value of the property can be mortgaged, whereas if a property is under construction or if it is off plan, only the property amount or the value that is due on completion or handover can be mortgaged. Property ownership costs, which is point number 8, basically gives you an idea about how much cost you're going to incur year after year once you own your property, which is usually your annual service charge and is payable on a quarterly basis, depending on how big your property is, on the cost per square foot. Now, investing in Dubai's real estate market is pretty much like how this game involves strategy. You need to understand that if you buy a property, you can either play it safe by renting it out long-term or short-term, or you can resell it when it is under construction or it is handed over. Now, if you choose to resell it, you're probably looking at an area which has a higher scope for capital appreciation, so that you can either maximize your return on equity or, for the long run, maximize your return on investment when it is handed over. If you're buying a property to rent out, either short or long term, you can expect long-term rental figures at 7 to 9% annually, and short-term figures for short-term rent at 12 to 15% annually. And that would probably be in locations that are frequented by tourists or in and around the CBD or Central Business District of Dubai, like Business Bay, Marina, or maybe even downtown for that matter. Now, which brings me to the last point, buying directly from a developer versus working with an agent. Now, if you're looking for a property in the off-plan market, either for investment or home ownership, if you buy directly from a developer, they're probably going to be keen on selling you what they have to offer. Whereas if you work with an agent, a good agent for that matter, he or she is not going to be personally attached to any developer and will be able to offer you what you require based on your specific and precise objective at no additional cost, because there are zero agency fees when you buy a property in the off-plan market, even if you work with an agent. Now, these were, I believe, 10 points. And if you'd like more information or if you're interested in the Dubai real estate market, feel free to reach out to me with my contact details in the description box below.